My name is Dr. Marc Reynolds. I'm a voice teacher, performance coach, and stage director. I'm excited to be here today with my good friend Sam Johnson. He's an amazing voice teacher, friend, and he's really amazing at making videos and giving really insightful commentary. So I'm excited to be able to make this commentary reaction video with him today.
I am really excited for this.
We're going to be doing a video from 아이즈원, Suki To Iwasetai. I'm really excited to be doing some J-pop reviews for you. It's going to be a great time. Here we go.
会いたいと言ってるのは最近私ばかりじゃない。何度もしつこいくらい毎日あなたが誘ってきたのに、輝いてるダイヤモンドはどこかにしまい忘れてるの。ねえもう一度思い出してよ、昔のよりときめきましょう。
So Sam, you're a better expert on K-pop. Talk to me a little bit about what you're saying K-pop wise here.
Yeah, there's huge influences with it. What I like vocally about what they're doing is they're just not pushing at all. Everything is so spoken and like matter of fact all the way through. And I think that just lets them maintain the sound while they're doing all of the motions. I haven't seen very much J-pop. Most of what I've watched is K-pop. But yeah, you can see some pretty intense similarities.
I was reading an article where it talked about how J-pop took off and then K-pop took off and kind of went its own direction and eclipsed J-pop a little bit. And so J-pop's now reacting to K-pop. One of the things that I'm seeing in what they're doing vocally is, like you're saying, they're keeping it really easy. One commentary that I've heard is they talk about Japanese as being nasal. And I don't think I hear that here. What I think I hear is, like you're saying, just really spoken.
It just sounds forward. It doesn't sound nasal. It just sounds forward. It's not an affected sound.
And I think that's something that's really confusing is we think sometimes we label nasality when it's not nasal. It's just a forward placement. And so I'm with you here. I think it just sounds really easy.
It is kind of easy to like mix up when someone says don't be nasal. If your perception of it is either the sound of it or what it feels like, that can lead you to different roads. I've had a bunch of people who I know that they've been told don't be nasal, like stop singing so nasal, and so everything just falls back. They lose that forward placement because what their perception of the nasality was this ringing feeling in the front of their face, which, you know, is there a healthy amount of nasal quality to the sound? Maybe, but you know, determining whether it's actually nasal or if it's just forward, I think is a huge distinction to make. And what I'm hearing from them is not nasality, it's just forward.
If you're wondering if you're singing nasally or just forward, there's an easy test you can do. If you sing and pinch your nose and it changes the sound, then you have some nasality, which is caused by that soft palate dropping and air actually coming through the nose. Instead, if you plug your nose and it really doesn't change the sound coming out of your mouth, not nasal, it's just forward.
Another thing that I would recommend for pretty much anyone is record yourself doing it, because listening to it from a microphone, from something else, you're gonna hear it different than you will just in your head. And if you're making all of your adjustments based on what you're hearing in your head, you're probably gonna overcorrect or just change something really weird. Like last year we were working on Sam Smith or something, and I was trying to not be nasal, and I don't know, we were in this really, really live room. Do you remember that day?
Yeah.
And it just trying to adjust it, my perception of the sound in my head was so different from what we could hear just immediately bouncing back. And it's hard. It's hard to kind of put those two things together.
Recording yourself and to determine your sound is huge. That's also why we use voice teachers. Even the best professionals, they go to a voice teacher not necessarily to learn new technique, but to make sure that what they're doing actually sounds right in the room, is actually right. You know, I had a
Exactly.
lesson where I went into a voice teacher that I trust, and I've been talking all day about these principles. Went in, and he essentially taught me the same lesson I just taught all day at the university, and it was humbling on one level, but the other, I was like, that's exactly why I'm here.
Yeah, I had a lesson with with my teacher just a few hours ago, and it's almost cathartic. It's almost just more of a therapy thing at some point, or just having someone to bounce ideas off of or anything. No matter where you are in your vocal journey, voice teachers are still important. It's not that they're going to try to make you a totally different person. It's just the best voice teachers are going to try to make you the best you. And you can't hear it from inside yourself. Like, you need that external, not validation, but external ears.
I'm with you 100% there. So something else
Cool.
that I was really fascinated by, I was watching here, is they're doing a lot of movement. They're moving a lot on stage, even the people that are singing. But it's not, they're not letting any tension from that movement creep up into their neck or in their jaw. It's just they're keeping it really straightforward. So
No, it's I love that, of just the idea of intentional movement and not letting those intentional movements influence everything else. It's kind of like when you're learning how to play an instrument and sing together. You have to be really good at both things so that when you put them together, it doesn't wreck everything. They've probably practiced this dance separate from the singing so many times, and the singing separate from the dance, that they're individual components rather than things that need to influence each other.
いつも慣れててしまうもの時々は確かめないとどこか行っちゃうよ絶対好きと言わせたいあなたの方から好きと言わせたい Want to kiss 好きと言わせたい私の目を見せ好きと言わせたい Want to kiss 抱きしめてくれても伝わってこないけど言葉でちょうだい Want you kiss
I think that the movement actually is helping them because it's so flowy with everything. Nothing is brisk and tight up here. So yeah, dancing can become an aerobic effort, and that can throw off your breathing and stuff, but it's not really influencing their sound from what I can hear.
I think a really good voice technique or way to get rid of tension is to get up and start moving. Notice if you do introduce tension into your voice, your body's all of a sudden going to want to lock up and stop. It's going to help you identify where tension is. It'll also help you release it. So it's really exciting. Something else that I'm really fascinated by watching J-pop is that they seem to really value the treble, that first frequency, those lower sounds. And this goes for the male voices as well. If we're listening to the instruments, we're listening to the voice, it's really treble heavy. You know, the percussion is really treble heavy. We are not hearing a lot of low bass drum stuff.
Sorry, I was just going to say it kind of goes back to the idea of the nasality or that forwardness being that treble, and you can hear it cutting through all the way through. They're just not choosing to round it out. So if they were trying to make this sound more like musical theater or like classical, what would you suggest that they do?
If we're going to make this more music theater or classical, first thing I would say is don't get rid of that forward buzz. That's the first thing that people think that they need to get rid of. Don't.
It's so common.
Instead,
Yeah.
just add to it a little bit more height in back.
And just dropping the jaw and tongue, getting all of that out of the way will automatically make it a more round, fuller sound.
And if you watch their mouths here, they're not dropping their jaw, which is, again, contributing to this higher sound. And I was thinking, well, why are they gravitating towards this? Why this higher sound? Do you see the same thing in K-pop?
Yeah, there's a lot of it. I mean, you see mostly, especially with male vocalists, they are a bigger fan of the heavier chest sound, of like pulling chest up to about that A. They can all mix pretty well, but that seems to be an expected sound, is kind of that, not all the way to guttural, but just, you know, a bigger, more full chesty sound. But with the women, yeah, it's totally just a very spoken sound. It's forward. It doesn't seem to try to be like ultra resonant or anything.
That's an interesting point to think of. Like, you know, the different ways they perceive gender, how that reflects in their voice. In the US, women speak on an average a third lower than their voice works optimally.
Everyone's just talking
Yeah,
like this.
and they're
all the
talking
time.
really low. And there's reasons for that. There's cultural reasons. In Japan, there's cultural reasons where the women, they probably speak higher.
Because you spent a bunch of time in Japan,
so
right?
I lived 2 years in Japan, and I love it. It's to me, it's home. But the women there aren't afraid to speak in a higher tone. Here in the U.S., you speak that high, you're gonna look. They're gonna call you a ditz or not take you seriously. But there, it's considered a feminine thing.
I think it's so unfair, like, that women have to go through that, and guys do too. I mean, there's this societal pressure to just talk low all the time, and it's ever since my voice changed, it's like, oh yeah, I guess this is it now. And it's had to become kind of a conscious effort to bring some of this in, and it feels so much better in the long run. But what we gravitate to is just down here, and whether it's perceived as taking away power by speaking at a little bit of a higher pitch, I'm not sure, but it definitely is not benefiting vocal technique.
Two other things that, as I'm noticing as I'm watching, one thing that really draws my attention every time, just because I think it's crazy, is how much these upper teeth are coming out. I've talked about in some of my other videos this upper tooth smile thing, and we see it all the way from opera to music theater to pop to whatever, but you're seeing it almost 100% here.
Yeah, it seems pretty rare for people to consciously cover while they're singing, especially in pop music. Just having that exposed definitely helps brighten up the sound. What I'm wondering is, do you think that they're making any differences in how they're singing because they're singing in a group compared to if this was just a solo piece?
My experience in listening to J-pop is not necessarily. I think this is actually pretty consistent with the sound that I'm used to hearing when I'm listening to J-pop. You would expect with a language that's so consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel to have it sound choppy, but it doesn't. They're not overusing the air. They're using just like a teeny bit of air moving fast. It's stunning.
It's really common with any language that is character-based for it to end up becoming choppy. When I was teaching in Hong Kong and working with like mostly Cantonese, that was one of the main things, is trying to get it spoken out rather than just da, 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 da. It makes such a big difference having that uninterrupted airflow.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep going here.
I just thought that it was really interesting that you could kind of pick out individual voices, but it's still blended together just because they're all singing in similar ways. It doesn't feel like anyone is popping out of the texture. But like you said, I don't think that they would change how they're singing very much if they were doing it solo. It just feels too easy how they're singing right now, so why change it?
What we've talked about is actually why it blends so well. I mean, first, they're keeping their placement consistent and forward, all of them. They're keeping all their vowels pure.
If anyone who's been in a choir knows what it's like to have someone who's super, super bright and someone who's singing choir, church old lady sounds, like it just doesn't blend together.
I wouldn't be surprised if you spread them out and had them each sing on their own, that they wouldn't be changing what they're doing on there. It's just a matter of them singing in the same consistent manner.
It's probably just the fact that they sing together so much. Like they're always together, they're always singing together. They just, the more that you spend with one person, you'll start listening a little bit different and adjusting how you sing without even thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's keep going here.
私だけにずっと言わせるつもり同じくらい言ってくれなきゃ愛を信じないよ絶対好きと言わせたいあなたの方から好きと言わせたい Want you to kiss 好きと言わせたい私の目を見せ好きと言わせたい Want you to kiss 抱きしめてくれても伝わってこないちゃんと言葉でちょうだい Want you to kiss
What do you think of when you watch this in opera director mode? Just for like the blocking of everything.
When I'm in opera director mode, the usual opera singer would look at this much movement and think there's not a prayer I can sing and do this much movement at the same time. Right? My opera director side of me says that's a really bad idea. But again, the performance coach side of me says, yeah, but the difference is they have a mic, so they aren't having to do quite so much aerobically to sing and produce the sound. They're also being really efficient with their sound. They're not overly stressing, and they're also being really economical with how they move. The other thing that I'm noticing is that the way that they have choreographed it is, it's cute and it's really sharp. They have it really put together. It's smooth, it's slick, it looks really professional. But there's also a lot of variety. It's fun to watch, right? When it comes down to any performance, whether I'm thinking of it as an opera stage director, as a performance coach, what I'm looking at is, if I was an audience member, a normal average Joe Schmo out there, would I have a good time watching this? Would I be engaged? And I'm watching this and I'm thinking, I love it. I think it's
Absolutely.
cool.
Another thing, just thinking about how we've talked a lot about how this treble kind of cuts across, but what I'm hearing is the depth of sound comes from the volume of voices. It's like there are so many people singing at times that you just get that variety in the instrument that kind of fills it out. So it doesn't sound nearly as like just piercing because we have so many people, I think.
I think that's a great observation. I hadn't thought of it that way before. I agree. I think the other thing I was really interested in with Japanese, it's flat. Like Chinese, as you know, there's all kinds of inflections.
There's different tones.
But Japanese, it's purposefully flat. You don't speak with inflection for the most part. Not really. I mean, yes, nuance, but not like we think of it in Western music where when we're singing Western music, we want to choose the most important word and make that the loudest, longest, most important, highest note.
Can you give me an example in Japanese of what that kind of sounds like so that we can hear the difference?
Watashi no namae wa Marc desu. If I was to say it in English, my name is Mark. It's just flat. So in here, we hear that dynamically, there's not a huge amount of contrast within a phrase. But, I'm not bored either because I think they're finding contrast and variety in a lot of other ways. And I think sometimes we rely too much on one mode of getting contrast or another rather than really looking at all the different ways we can.
And when you rely on just one mode, it ends up getting paired with other things so that you can't separate them and be able to adjust like tone, rhythm, volume, pitch all separately. And you have to be able to go between those so that you can choose what's appropriate for the situation rather than just what you're capable of doing. Like if you... Yeah. It's hard. It's really hard, especially like volume and pitch. They get tied together so often of you can't sing this high note unless it's all the way there or nothing. Finding the place in the middle gives you a lot more freedom. And it lets you do things like this, which is be interesting in different ways.
I think it's super exciting to watch how innovative they are, how really technically precise they are. I mean, they are so consistent in every way across the board that to me, it's just stunning.
That's the key, is they're just consistent. And I think that pop music in general is kind of underrated, especially by like serious musicians and the voice world and stuff. But there is so much value to being able to just show up and do something the same way every single night. And they can do that. Absolutely, they can do that.
And it is. It's amazing. It shows a tremendous amount of technical aptitude. Anything else on your brain?
No, this was really fun. It's fun. I mean, I don't know if you said, but Mark used to be my voice teacher, and we had lessons for like over a year together. And I was very, very emotional and sad and angry all the time. Most of what our lessons ended up turning into was just talking about stuff like this all the time. And so it is super fun to be able to do that again and share it with people.
And Sam was one of those students for me where I learned just as much from him as he probably learned from me. So it's one of those that it's really fun to be now talking this afterwards as both professionals talking through what we're really seeing and hearing. I hope you learned as much from this video and enjoyed it as much as we have. We look forward to seeing you online next time. If you want to book a lesson with Sam, you can go to his website at vocalease.net. If you want to come take a lesson either as a voice student or as a performance coaching session, you can come to my studio at mrperformingartsstudio.com and book a time. We'd love to see you online.
Marc's value as just a performance coach, it goes past that. It's finding out how to be comfortable with being yourself in front of other people. And I feel like a lot of people go into voice lessons just to help with that kind of confidence boost. That's Marc's specialty. And there aren't very many people who do that, unfortunately.
That means a lot, Sam. Thanks.
Well, it's totally true, though.
You know, it just means a lot. So thanks. See you guys next time.
Bye.